Hey everyone, ready to dig into a career path that's not just in demand, but truly makes a difference?
We're talking about becoming an environmental protection manager. It's a field where passion for the environment meets real-world action, tackling some of the biggest challenges we face today.
We've got our hands on some great resources to guide us today. We've got career guides that break down what the role really entails, and even an interview prep guide with sample questions that tend to trip people up.
Because having those tailored answers ready can make all the difference. And that's where RoleCatcher's AI can be a real game changer. Imagine having your resume and cover letter fine-tuned for each job, highlighting exactly what those hiring managers want to see.
It's like having a secret weapon in your job search arsenal.
Exactly.
So let's jump right in. This career guide paints a picture of what these managers actually do. It's not just about being an environmental whiz, it's about leadership. Think advising organizations on policies, analyzing threats, and running campaigns to protect those beautiful green spaces we all cherish.
And it's a blend of scientific knowledge, policy smarts, and serious communication skills, too. You're not just following regulations, you're often advocating for change and bringing people along with you.
So it's about understanding the science, knowing the rules, and being able to get everyone else on board. That's a powerful combo. I want to dive into these interview questions. Are you ready to tackle those?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right, question number 1. Describe your experience in managing environmental projects and how you ensured compliance with regulations. It seems pretty straightforward, but something tells me there's more to it.
You're right. It's not just listing off projects. It's showcasing your ability to lead, handle complexity, and deliver results while dotting every I and crossing every T. Think of a project where you made a real difference, like streamlining a process to cut down on waste, or maybe spearheading a new initiative to boost sustainability.
So it's about highlighting those problem-solving skills and your knack for getting things done.
Precisely. And whenever you can, quantify those wins. Did you slash energy use by a certain percentage? Did your project lead to measurable improvements in, say, air or water quality? Numbers pack a punch, especially in this field where data fuels decisions.
It's one thing to say you made an impact. It's another to back it up with hard evidence. Now, this next question feels like it's all about your proactive side. What strategies have you implemented to improve environmental sustainability in previous roles?
This is where you show them you're not just following the rules, you're looking for ways to make things better. Did you champion a switch to renewable energy? Did you lead a charge to shrink your company's carbon footprint? Think about the times you went above and beyond to drive change.
And this is where I can see RoleCatcher's AI being a game changer. Imagine running your answers through their system and getting feedback on how to make them even stronger, really make them resonate.
It's like having a coach in your corner who can analyze your responses, point out areas for improvement, even help you identify skills from past roles that might not seem directly related to environmental work, but actually are.
Okay, on to question 3. How do you stay up to date with new environmental regulations and developments in the industry? This one feels like it's all about showing your commitment to constantly learning and growing.
Absolutely. This field moves fast, and employers want to see you're proactive about staying in the know. Don't hesitate to mention conferences, journals, those late-night deep dives into the latest sustainability reports.
So don't just say you're up to date. Show them you're engaged, informed.
Exactly. Be specific. Mention a recent regulatory change that caught your eye or a new tech that could shake things up. It shows you're not just skimming headlines, but really digging in.
It's about that genuine interest in the field, that commitment to staying ahead of the curve. All right, question 4. How do you prioritize environmental initiatives and projects within a company's overall strategic goals? This one feels like it requires some serious strategic thinking.
It absolutely does. This is where you connect your passion for the planet with a deep understanding of the business side of things. You need to demonstrate that you can align environmental efforts with the company's bottom line, because realistically, businesses are more likely to invest in initiatives that make environmental and economic sense.
So it's about finding that sweet spot where doing good for the planet also makes good business sense.
You got it.
Could you give us an example of how someone might answer this effectively?
Sure. Let's say you were at a manufacturing company. You could talk about how you successfully made the case for investing in energy-efficient equipment. You'd explain that, yeah, the initial investment was hefty, but the long-term cost savings on energy made it a win-win for the environment and the company's profits.
That's a fantastic example. It shows you're thinking long-term, strategically, and understanding the bigger picture. It's not just about pushing for environmental initiatives for the sake of it. It's about showing how those initiatives can drive business value as well. Okay, let's move on to question 5. Question 5. How do you communicate environmental initiatives and their impact to both internal and external stakeholders?
This feels like it gets to the heart of what it means to lead in this role.
It really does. This one's about taking those great ideas and inspiring others to get on board. And you have to tailor your message, right? I mean,
Yeah.
what works for your internal team might not resonate with, say, the public.
Well, you wouldn't communicate the same way to a room full of engineers as you would to a community group concerned about, say, a local park.
Exactly. It's about turning complex info into compelling stories.
So how do you show them you can do that?
Well, this question's asking about your ability to translate, to connect with those different audiences. So highlight those presentations you've rocked, reports you've written, heck, even social media campaigns you've spearheaded. Don't just say you're a good communicator. Prove it.
Right. Give them concrete examples of how your communication style has actually moved the needle. Did your killer presentation secure funding for a crucial project? Did that community outreach campaign boost participation in, let's say, a recycling program? Those are the stories that'll stick with them.
Those real-world examples really paint a picture. Okay, on to question 6. How do you manage the environmental risks associated with the company's operations? This feels like one where experience is key.
It really is. This is where you bring that risk management expertise to the table. Talk about the tools and methods you use to identify, assess, and importantly, mitigate those environmental risks.
Right, so this could be anything from those in-depth environmental audits to really rigorous safety protocols, right? Anything that shows you're not just reacting to problems, but getting ahead of them.
Exactly. And again, get specific. Did you create a killer risk management plan that the whole company adopted? Did you roll out a new environmental management system that, say, reduced accidents? Those details make your experience pop.
So for our listeners who are maybe earlier in their careers and haven't had a chance to manage those larger scale risks yet, how would you suggest they approach this question?
That's such a good question. Even without years of on-the-job experience, you can still demonstrate a solid grasp of risk management principles. Think about internships, research projects, volunteer work, anything where you had to consider those potential environmental impacts.
Yeah, those experiences, even on a smaller scale, can be super valuable.
Absolutely. Like maybe you helped assess the environmental impact of a particular practice during a research project, or you volunteered with an organization where you learned the ins and outs of environmental regulations.
Exactly.
And this is another area where RoleCatcher can be a game changer. Their AI can look at your experiences, even those that might not scream environmental management, and pinpoint those transferable skills. They can help you connect the dots for the hiring manager and present your background in a way that aligns with that environmental protection manager role.
Okay, on to question 7. This one feels pretty technical. What methods do you use to measure the environmental impact of a company's operations?
You got it. This one's all about those hard skills. Be ready to talk about the specific tools and methods you know like the back of your hand. Life cycle assessments, LCAs, carbon footprinting, environmental management systems. Don't forget any specialized software or databases you've used either.
So it's not enough to just throw out a bunch of fancy terms. You have to show them you know how to use these methods in the real world.
Absolutely. Employers want to see that you can walk the walk. Give them examples of how you've used those methods in your past roles, the challenges you ran into, the results you achieved.
It's about proving you have the know-how to actually measure, track, and hopefully reduce an organization's environmental impact. Now let's shift gears to question 8. How do you work with regulatory bodies to ensure compliance with environmental regulations? This one feels big, especially in terms of navigating those relationships.
It's essential. You've got to show them you're not just familiar with the rules, but you can navigate the whole compliance dance.
Right, because it's one thing to know the rule book. It's a whole other thing to build those relationships with regulators, anticipate those hurdles, and find solutions that work for everyone involved.
Exactly. This question is about diplomacy, communication, problem solving, the whole package. Talk about your experience, obtaining permits, filing reports, going to those meetings with regulatory agencies. Have you ever tackled a particularly gnarly compliance issue and found a creative solution? Now is the time to brag about it.
It's about showing you can build bridges, navigate that bureaucracy, and make sure your organization is operating responsibly.
And legally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, before we get to the final question, I want to loop back to RoleCatcher for a sec. You mentioned their AI can be really helpful in tailoring answers for different jobs. Can you unpack that a bit more?
Sure, so picture this. You're applying to two different environmental protection manager jobs. One's with, let's say, a huge manufacturing company, the other with a nonprofit focused on, I don't know, ocean conservation. The core duties might seem pretty similar on paper, but those company cultures, their priorities, even the lingo they use are going to be totally different.
You wouldn't want to give the same canned answers to both.
Definitely not. That's where RoleCatcher swoops in. Their AI can dissect the specific language in each job description, those keywords, the skills they're emphasizing, and then give you feedback tailored to that specific job.
So it's like having a secret decoder ring for job applications.
Exactly. Helps you speak their language, highlight those golden nuggets in your experience, and boost your chances of landing that interview.
That's seriously cool. Okay, let's dive into that last interview question. This one feels really timely. How do you incorporate sustainability into a company's supply chain?
This one's getting more and more important because organizations are realizing, hey, our supply chains have a real impact on the planet and people. It's not just about what happens within your four walls anymore. You've got to zoom out and look at the big picture, right? From raw materials to manufacturing to how those products get shipped around the world.
It's that understanding that sustainability takes a village, right? It goes way beyond a single company.
Totally. And it takes a deep understanding of how those supply chains work, how to get everyone on board, and coming up with creative solutions. Be prepared to talk about strategies for sustainable sourcing, cutting down on waste throughout the supply chain, working with suppliers who are also committed to sustainability.
So it's about asking the hard questions, right? Where are these materials coming from? What are the environmental and social impacts of how things are made? How can we collaborate with our suppliers to do better?
Yes. Don't be afraid to get into the weeds here. Talk about supplier audits, certification programs, even innovative packaging.
This is where your passion can really shine. Talk about those initiatives you're fired up about. Maybe it's working with suppliers to reduce their carbon emissions or finding ways to use more recycled materials.
Absolutely. It's about moving beyond just minimizing harm to creating systems that are truly sustainable, even regenerative.
Okay, wow, we've covered so much ground here. We've unpacked the many sides of being an environmental protection manager, gone deep on some common and tricky interview questions, and even seen how RoleCatcher can give you a leg up in this competitive field.
We have, but remember, this is really just the tip of the iceberg. The world of environmental protection is huge, and it's constantly changing.
So true. Before we wrap up this section on landing the job, I want to touch on something that's super important for anyone listening who's serious about this career path. It's not enough to just get the job. You want to build a fulfilling career that makes a real difference, right? So what does that look like for an environmental protection manager? You've hit the nail on the head. It's about more than checking boxes on a resume. It's about finding a role where you can use your skills to make a tangible impact. This career guide we've got from RoleCatcher stresses how important it is to get hands-on experience.
Absolutely. Think internships, volunteer work, even research projects. Those are your chances to apply what you know, learn new skills, and start building those all-important connections.
And those connections really do matter, right? Networking in any field is key, but especially one as collaborative as this.
For sure. Go to industry events, join professional organizations, connect with people on LinkedIn. You never know what opportunities those connections might unlock.
This guide also talks about professional development, especially certifications that can give you an edge.
Those certifications show you've got specialized knowledge and that you're serious about your career, always leveling up. It's a green flag for employers.
Like a badge of honor that helps you stand out from the crowd, right? Speaking of standing out, I have to ask, where does RoleCatcher fit in with all this? Can their AI help with certifications too?
RoleCatcher doesn't actually give out certifications, but their platform can be a goldmine of info. It can point you to the certifications that are most in demand in your field, even analyze your skills to recommend ones that fit your goals.
Like a personalized roadmap for your professional journey.
Exactly. No more guessing games. You can focus on the certifications that'll really move the needle in your career.
That's huge. Before we wrap up, you mentioned continuous learning earlier, and I want to circle back to that. It's one thing to land the job, but it's another to truly excel in this field. How can environmental protection managers stay ahead of the curve? Because it's a field that's constantly changing, right?
It's all about embracing lifelong learning. Stay curious about those emerging trends, new technologies, ever-evolving regulations. Go to conferences, read everything you can, join webinars, never stop pushing yourself.
And don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zone. Volunteer for leadership roles, find mentors who inspire you, jump on those chances to learn something new.
Exactly. The environmental field is dynamic. The more you embrace learning and change, the more successful you'll be.
Well, it looks like we've reached the end of another deep dive.
We have.
We've explored what it really takes to be an environmental protection manager, armed you with some tools and strategies to rock those interviews, and even seen how RoleCatcher can be your secret weapon throughout your job search and beyond.
It's time to put all that knowledge into action. Update that resume, polish those interview skills, network like crazy, and never stop learning.
The future of our planet needs passionate people like you.
Go make a difference.
Until next time, everyone, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.